Greetings fellow adventurers and welcome back to the channel where today we shall be doing something different. For today we shall be taking a more in-depth dive into my drawing process. Like I said in the previous video, I'm going to be using the time-lapse of spoiler to show my process, but slowed down so you can see what I do more clearly. Starting off with a pose using reference, I use a pencil brush to quickly rough in the skeleton, the scaffolding if you will, of her pose. I use a larger brush size for this as it's the roughest pass I'll do. On a new layer with a smaller brush size, I refine the anatomy. Sometimes I do this a few times until I'm happy with things, but in this case I only refine things once before moving on to the base sketch. On a new layer with the same brush but smaller size and different colour, I start building up her design. Normally I will do some sketching in my sketchbook to come up with a design before taking it to digital, but in this case I had a strong idea in mind I liked and was happy to develop it as I went. This is a good time to start experimenting with different outfit ideas if you haven't already. Sometimes I'd have a sketch with an outfit I'm happy with before going into it, and sometimes I develop it as I go, taking to Pinterest for ideas. The line work is one of my favourite parts of drawing characters. Here on a new layer, using my go-to brush, the ink bleed brush, I start off with inking the eyes and working my way out and down the character. At this stage, I sometimes add extra bits that were not in the base sketch. Usually during the creative process, little additions come to mind naturally as I draw. Coming up is a very small part of the time-lapse. Here I copied the line work, tinted it red, made it a multiply layer above the original line work and lowered the opacity, giving the line work a slightly warmer look. Here I'll begin work on the colouring, and clipping masks will be your friend here. Starting with her skin as a base colour, I build up the layers of colour with clipping masks. Like I said in the previous video, it took me a bit of time to get the spread of colours how I wanted. As Spoiler's main colours are pink and black, I wanted to break that up with some lighter accents and different shades of pink and purple to help break up the form and add depth. Coming up is another small part of the time-lapse. When stuck on colouring, I would make a new layer that's completely black and set it as a colour blend mode, turning the piece grayscale. This is so I'm not focusing on colour, I'm focusing on tone. This allows me to adjust colours and brightness so there's more depth and contrast. Here I add spots of grime and highlight any scratches that I add during the line work phase. Coming up is yet another small part of the process. To add a bit of texture to a design, I create a noise layer, set it to overlay and lower the opacity. Another one of my favourite parts of the process. On a multiply layer with the opacity lowered, I start to fill in where the shadows will go. This part is very satisfying as it adds some depth and makes the character pop. To help with the shading, I usually add a white layer clipping mask so I don't get distracted by colour. This helps a lot to draw my attention to where the shadows need to be. Once the shading is done, I usually duplicate it, lower the opacity some more and blur it slightly, just to add some softer shading. Coming up is a new part of the process. After the shading is done, I go back to particular parts, like the skin for example, and change the shadow colour. It makes things pop a little more. Adding the light is usually the last step in my creative process. On a new layer, using a lasso tool and a soft round brush, I add lighting, being careful not to overdo it. And that is my drawing process for Spoiler. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's video and my deep dive into my creative processes and thinking. This was very different from my usual stuff, so let me know what you think in the comments. If you like what you see, why not leave a like and subscribe and follow me on my socials to stay up to date on future videos. And if you have any ideas for future videos, why not leave them in the comments down below and they may become reality. See you next time for more character designs, redesigns and fan art.